Much for being with us. If I can, I want to first ask you about something that Senator Warner said. He said there was a coordinated effort to discredit the Mueller investigation. Are you part of a coordinated effort?
I think the senator gave his speech today because of all the facts we've learned in the last several weeks. Facts like the DNC and the Clinton campaign paid for the dossier. Facts like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, the text messages they exchanged. That's why he gave his speech today. It had nothing to do with the fact that he's worried about the president getting rid of Mueller. It had everything to do with all these facts that are coming out that go to the heart of this issue and disprove, frankly, the contention that the Democrats have had for a long time. I want to talk about the facts
and the issues in a second. I'm asking about right now his charge that there was a coordinated effort. Have you had conversations, or has your office had conversations with the White House about the Mueller investigation?
I have not called we just had Mr. Sessions, Mr. Rosenstein, Mr. Wray in front of us. I did not talk to the White House about what kind of questions I was going to ask. I based it on the evidence and the facts that have come out. I mean, how do you get around the text message?
Have you had conversations with the White House, not about the questions you ask, but about the Mueller investigation in general?
Well, I've talked with the White House about all kinds of things. We've had talks with the White House about tax policy. We have talks about welfare policy. We've had talks about Obamacare. Of course, we've had talks with the White House. But my questions in those committees was driven by the evidence we've received in the last several weeks, like the text message from Peter Strzok and Lisa Page says, where we can't afford to take the risk that the American people are going to elect Donald Trump, so we need an insurance policy. If that doesn't go to intent to have a plan to disrupt the election, I don't know what does.
I want to talk about your argument here in a second, but I'm trying to get to the issue of coordination. You just said, of course, we talked to the White House.
John.
Of course, we talked to the White House about the Mueller investigation. No, but do you talk about talking points? Are there talking points on the Mueller investigation?
Of course not. Of course not. But here's the coordination. The Clinton campaign and the DNC, now we know those are one and the same, paid the law firm who paid Fusion GPS, who paid Christopher Steele, who paid Russians to give him this dossier, get this dossier that was, we think, taken to the FISA court and was the basis for securing warrants to spy on Americans. The coordination between the Clinton campaign and Russians to influence the election.
I will get to the dossier and the FBI, your charges about the FBI in just a second, but I want to finish up on this issue of coordination.
Those are facts.
I want to get to the issue. I want to stay on the issue of coordination for 1 second.
I want to talk about the coordination we know. Here's the coordination we know.
Hang on. You've been on Fox News when you say that the FBI was, acting to keep Donald Trump from being president of the United States. Before you go on Fox News, do you talk to them? Do you talk to them about these claims that you will make?
I talk to my colleagues, I look at the evidence, and I talk with our press people who book us on your show, and we talk about the coordination that exists between the Clinton campaign and the Russians. Now think about this. We know for a fact the Clinton campaign paid Russians to do what? To influence the election. And yet we've had this month-long investigation by Bob Mueller with no evidence that President Trump worked with Russians in any way to coordinate and influence the election. But we know the Democrats did.
President Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., had a meeting in Trump Tower where he was promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. That happened. Donald Trump says it happened. So that happened. Hang on. Let me ask you now about what you're saying about the FBI, because I want to get to this. You say you believe there was a plot in the FBI to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. If that's true, was this not the worst plot ever? The FBI director, days before the election, reopened the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yeah, because you got to remember the context at that time. Mr. Comey reopened it after he had done the exoneration letter, after he had went public with something that never before done, after he made the decision, not Loretta Lynch, after Peter Strzok ran the entire investigation and changed the exoneration from a criminal standard, gross negligence, to a non-criminal standard, extreme carelessness. After all that, everyone, remember the context when Mr. Comey does that. Everyone thought Clinton was going to win. This was like, oh, no big deal. He can do this with the and Weiner messages back and forth, those emails. He could do that because he thought they was going to win, that she was going to win.
Listen. Strzok was on the team that changed it. We know that much. We don't know whether he was the actual one who changed it. Again, I say to you, so you were suggesting that part of this plot to keep Donald Trump from becoming president included James Comey reopening the investigation of Hillary Clinton?
I'm just saying he reopened it a few weeks before the election.
Wouldn't that be a lousy way to plot defeating Donald Trump to reopen the investigation of Hillary's emails?
So back in October, you guys, before the election, you guys didn't like Jim Comey. Now you like him? I don't get the point. What I'm talking about is, how about focusing on the text? How about focusing on the text messages last week? How do you dismiss the idea that Peter Strzok said we can't afford to let the American people decide who's going to be the next president? We need an insurance policy. How do you dismiss that? How do you dismiss that?
I haven't dismissed anything. The only one who
doesn't that point to intent to have a plan to do that?
Excuse me. The only one who has dismissed Peter Strzok is Robert Mueller, who pushed him off of his own investigation.
No.
Because
Robert Mueller, but remember, he first put him on the team, John.
And then when he found out,
he put the guy who ran the Clinton investigation, who interviewed Mills, Abedin, who interviewed Secretary Clinton, who changed the exoneration letter from a criminal standard to a non-criminal standard, the guy who ran the Russian investigation, the guy he put him on the team. And then when he kicked him off, did he tell anyone? No. When did we find out? Only when Strzok was when they were talking about bringing him in front of the Intel Committee. Only then did we find out about these text messages and why he was dismissed.
Are you questioning Robert Mueller, the special counsel's integrity here for the way he handled it?
I have not criticized Mr. Mueller, except I will say this. The one interaction I had with him prior to him being the special counsel was when he was FBI director. 3 weeks after the IRS scandal broke, he testified in front of the Judiciary Committee, and he could not answer one question about that investigation, even though it was the biggest story at the time. So my experience with Mr. Mueller wasn't a real positive one that one time.
Okay,
but I've not criticized him. What I'm criticizing
is the message right now. But hang on, Congressman, all right. So you're talking about Peter Strzok. You're talking about an FBI-coordinated effort to defeat Donald Trump. I want to read you something that came out in a story this week in Vanity Fair. Quotes from a former FBI agent. It says, the FBI is anti-Clinton, period. This former FBI agent said, I have a lot of friends who worked the Hillary investigation, and they freaking hated Hillary's guts. So that's a quote from a former FBI agent. I haven't heard you discuss that.
I mean, that's kind of funny. One quote from Vanity Fair, anonymous source saying there was a few people who didn't like Clinton.
Rudy Giuliani,
written text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, both of them at the FBI. We have text messages that show this huge anti-Trump bias and some that point to intent to actually try to make sure Donald Trump wasn't the president. And you're quoting some anonymous source from Vanity Fair. I mean, go ahead, but I don't think that compares to the text messages we have from Peter Strzok and Lisa Page.
All I'm saying is your concern about FBI bias seems partisan. You seem to have selective outrage.
No. The vast majority of the FBI are great people doing the Lord's work out there. I'm talking about the guys at the top. I'm talking about Andrew McCabe. I'm talking about Peter Strzok. I'm talking about Lisa Page. I'm talking about the guy over at the Justice Department, top official of the Justice Department, Bruce Orr, who was meeting with the author of the dossier, Christopher Steele, who met with Glenn Simpson, Fusion GPS, the people who paid for the dossier, both before and after that. I'm talking about those individuals. That's where the concern is, not the rank and file folks who are doing a great job.
And I hear you talking about those individuals, and only those individuals. All I'm asking is,
in your oversight role
in Congress, so if it came out that there were FBI agents in the New York field office, and there's been a lot of stories about agents in the New York field office who didn't particularly like Hillary Clinton, if it came out that they were sharing anti-Clinton messages, would that concern you as much?
Of course it would. Of course it would. But anti-Trump messages that bother me about Peter Strzok. Most of Mueller's team is anti-Trump. We know that. What concerns me is the intent to carry out a plan to disrupt the election, because as Mr. Strzok said, we can't afford to leave this in we the people's hands. That is a problem. And if it happened, and all the evidence seems to point in that direction, this is as bad as it gets.
We don't
John,
know.
This is scary stuff if it happened.
We don't know that Robert Mueller's team...
That's why I said if.
We don't know that Robert Mueller's team is anti-Trump. First of all, Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, donated to Republicans. Is he anti-Democrat?
We're not talking about Christopher Wray. We're talking about the folks on the Mueller team.
You were
talking about Peter Strzok.
You were talking about bias, Congressman. You said
I'm not saying bias is the biggest.
You just said to me Mueller's team is anti-Trump.
John, I said this. You got to keep it in. I said, look, if all we were focused on was anti-Trump, then there wouldn't be anyone left on the Mueller team. That's not my focus. I said this in committee to Christopher Wray. The focus is what Peter Strzok did, what he wrote. That's the concern. Rod Rosenstein,
the Deputy Attorney General, was appointed by President Trump, was appointed by a Republican, George W. Bush, at one point. He has oversight over the Mueller investigation right now. Is he anti-Trump?
I wish what Rod Rosenstein would do is answer our questions.
But is he anti-Trump?
I don't know. All I know is I wish he'd answer our questions, which he wouldn't do. I wish Mr. Sessions would answer our questions, which I wish Mr. Wray could answer our questions. I wish we could get the documents that we've requested at the Judiciary Committee that we're entitled to, so the American people can get the answers. So you can get the answers even, John. That's what I want. We're not getting that. We're going to keep pushing. Andrew McCabe is scheduled to be deposed in front of the Judiciary Committee tomorrow, so we're going to be doing that tomorrow. We're going to keep digging to get the answers. But all I know is what's come out thus far looks pretty bad.
Was James Comey part of a plot to keep Donald Trump from being president?
We'll find out. We'll find out. All I know is the text message from Peter Strzok to Lisa Page sure points to that being